She edited an anonymous author's novel for 3 months. Then she read the last chapter and understood who had written it.
Here's the first thing I can tell you about the manuscript. It arrived in my inbox on a Thursday afternoon in October with the subject line, Introduction via M. Harte, and an attachment called draft_final_v7.docx, which is the kind of file name that tells you the author has been living with this thing for a very long time. Here is the second thing. I almost didn't open it. I was busy. I am always busy. That's not specific to that Thursday. It's just the texture of the work, which is the work of reading other people's stories closely enough to help them become what they're trying to be, and which takes more time and attention than most people assume when they think about what editors actually do. My list was full. I had 3 manuscripts already in progress and a 4th I'd promised to start in November. And the email from M. Harte's introduction was the kind of vague, slightly over-warm message that usually means the manuscript isn't quite ready and the introduction is a favor being called in. I opened the attachment anyway. Just the first page, I told myself, just to see. I read 40 pages before I remembered I was supposed to be doing something else. The novel was, I'm going to try to describe this accurately because it matters. The novel was the best first draft I had read in 4 years of working as a freelance editor. Not perfect. First drafts are never perfect. And this one had the particular imperfections of something written with a great deal of feeling and not quite enough distance. Some scenes that went on past where they should have ended. Some dialogue that was doing too much work. Some structural choices in the middle section that I could already see needed to be untangled. But underneath all of that was a piece of writing that knew exactly what it was about and had the courage to be about it without flinching, which is rarer than the craft problems and more important than all of them. The novel was about a woman who leaves. That was it, at its simplest. A woman who is offered something she has always wanted and takes it, and in taking it, leaves behind a person who loved her. And the book was about what that cost. Not just him, but her, and the specific shape of a choice that is right and wrong simultaneously, and what you do with yourself when you understand that both of those things are true at the same time. I emailed back that evening. I said I'd be glad to take the project. I asked for a call to discuss terms and timeline. The author replied the next morning, "Thank you. I'd prefer to work by email if that's all right. I find it easier to think in writing." We never spoke on the phone. We worked entirely by email for 3 months, and it was the strangest and most precise professional relationship I have had in 14 years of editing. The author's name, as given in the introductory email, was J. Callahan. No first name anywhere in the correspondence, just the initial, which I didn't remark on because some writers are private and the initial was enough for a working relationship. The manuscript itself was narrated in the third person, which gave me nothing autobiographical to cross-reference, and the author's notes in the margin comments, there were a great many of them, dense and precise, were focused entirely on craft questions, never on source material. I had no way to know who J. Callahan was. I had an email address and a manuscript and a writing voice that was, I noted this early because you notice these things when you read closely, unusually specific about certain kinds of detail. Architecture, the way buildings hold light in different seasons, the relationship between a person's designed environment and their interior life. These things accumulated slowly, as most important things do. The first editorial letter I sent covered the structural issues I'd identified, the pacing in the second act, 3 scenes I thought could be cut without loss, a suggestion about the timeline of the central relationship that I thought would make the emotional logic clearer. Standard editorial work. I sent it on a Sunday evening and didn't expect a response until Tuesday. The response came at 11 p.m. Sunday. It was 3 paragraphs, careful and engaged, and it addressed every point I'd raised with the specific intelligence of someone who had been waiting to have this conversation and was glad it was finally happening. The author agreed on the pacing. disagreed about one of the 3 scenes with reasons that were good enough to make me reconsider, which I noted. Engaged with the timeline question at length, more length than the question strictly required, because the author wrote, the timeline is where the emotional logic lives, and if it's wrong there, it's wrong everywhere, so I'd rather we spent the time. I read that sentence twice. It was the sentence of someone who understood something important about how stories work, and also something important about how feelings work, which are not always the same understanding and are more useful together than apart. I wrote back that night. We went back and forth until 1 in the morning, which had never happened to me with a manuscript before, and I went to bed thinking about the novel and about the woman in it who had left and about what it was costing her, and I didn't entirely know why I was thinking about the woman that way, as someone real, as someone whose cost mattered to me, rather than as a narrative construction I was helping to refine. The feeling started in week 3 with a specific detail. The novel described, in passing, the town where the 2 characters had met, a university city in the north of England, a particular covered market, a coffee shop near the river where the woman used to study on Sunday mornings. None of this was unusual. Writers are specific about place. It's part of how fiction works. What was unusual was the coffee shop. The author described it precisely. The table in the left corner, the specific smell of the old building, the view from the window of the river and the stone bridge, and, on the far bank, an old print shop that no longer sold prints. I had been to that coffee shop. Twice a week for 3 years of my early 20s. At the table in the left corner because the window faced the bridge and I found it easier to read when I could see water. The print shop had been there. It had sold maps and old photographs and, in the window, for the entire time I lived there, a large reproduction of an Ordnance Survey map of the surrounding countryside that I had always meant to buy and never did. I read the passage 3 times. Then I kept reading. I told myself it was coincidence. University cities in the north of England have covered markets and river coffee shops, and writers visit places and use them, and there was no reason to think this particular coffee shop was the one I knew from that particular time in my life. I told myself this with some conviction for the rest of week 3 and most of week 4. In week 4, the novel described the university library, the specific reading room on the 2nd floor. The particular sound of the clock in that room, which was mechanical and slightly uneven. A sound I had sat next to through 2 winters of essay writing, without ever remarking on it until I read it described in someone else's manuscript and felt it physically. The way you feel something you haven't thought about in years when it comes back without warning. I sat with that for a while. Then I did what I had not done in week 3. I thought about who could have written this. Who would know that coffee shop, that reading room, that clock? Who had been there at the same time I had, which was 7 years ago, which was, I counted, exactly the timeline of the novel? Who would write a book about a woman who left and never explained? I thought of one name. I thought of it and set it aside because I was being professional and because it seemed improbable was the word I used. Improbable that Jay Callahan was the person I was thinking of. Improbable that the introduction through Margaret Harte, who knew us both from different decades and different contexts, had landed this manuscript on my desk for any reason other than professional coincidence. I told myself, reading into the text, which is an occupational hazard of editing. You spend enough time inside someone else's prose, and you start to see yourself in it, whether you're there or not. I kept reading, I kept editing, and the feeling kept accumulating, quietly, under everything else, the way feelings do when you're not yet ready to know what they are. By the 2nd month, the pattern was established. I would send editorial notes, the author would respond, usually within hours, sometimes within minutes, with the thoughtfulness of someone who had clearly been thinking about these questions already and needed only the prompt of the specific note to articulate what they've been circling. We wrote to each other in the way you write to someone who has read the same things you have and is interested in the same questions. and the questions we kept returning to were about the woman in the novel, about her choice and what it meant, and whether the book was doing justice to the complexity of it. The reader needs to understand, I wrote in week 5, that she doesn't leave easily. At the moment, it reads as though she just goes, as though the person she's leaving barely registers. And that can't be right, because the rest of the book is evidence that he registered completely. The leaving needs to hurt more on the page, or the rest of the book doesn't add up. The reply came 40 minutes later. You're right. I've been avoiding that scene. I think I've been hoping the reader would infer the difficulty from the aftermath. The way she talks about him later, the specific things she doesn't let herself think about. But you're right that inference isn't enough there. The scene needs to be what it actually was, which is the hardest thing she ever did, done badly, because she was 22 and didn't have the capacity to do it well. I'll rewrite it. The rewrite arrived 3 days later. It was the best thing in the manuscript. It was also, I noticed this and then set it aside because I was being professional, written with a specificity that didn't feel invented. The details were too precise. The dialogue had the grain of something remembered rather than constructed. The woman's internal state on the night she left was described with an intimacy that you can approximate through imagination, but that you usually only achieve through experience. I told the author it was the best thing in the manuscript. Thank you, they wrote back. It was the hardest to write, for reasons I won't go into here. I did not ask what the reasons were. I was being professional. But in week 7, the author sent something I hadn't asked for, a note, separate from the manuscript comments, at the bottom of an otherwise routine email about the third act pacing. Can I ask you something that isn't strictly editorial? I replied, of course. Do you think she deserves the ending she gets? In the novel, not in terms of narrative logic. I think you've already told me the ending works structurally, but in terms of, does she deserve it, given what she did? I read that question several times before answering, not because I didn't know what I thought, but because I wanted to say it carefully, because the question felt like it mattered in a way that extended past the manuscript. I think, I wrote, that deserve is the wrong word for what a novel does. Novels don't give characters what they deserve. They give characters what's true. What's true for this woman is that she made a choice that was both right and terrible. Right for the trajectory of her life, terrible for the person she left without explanation. Those two things coexist. The ending acknowledges both. That's different from deserving. Do you think she earned it, then? I sat with that word for a while. Earned was different from deserved. Earned implied agency, implied she'd done something, paid something, not just waited for the consequences of her choices to arrange themselves into something livable. I think she earned it by knowing what it cost, I wrote finally. The novel is very specific about what it cost her. She never lets herself off the hook. There's a scene in chapter 9, the dinner party, when she sees someone who reminds her of him, where she does something that is completely unnecessary in terms of plot. She stays an extra hour. She helps wash up. She has a conversation with the host's daughter about the daughter's first year in a new city. Nothing happens. The scene has no narrative function, but what it shows is that she is someone who understands, and has always understood, the weight of leaving. That's earning it, not the ending, just the weight. The reply came back quickly, just 3 words. That's the scene. I wrote, I know. And that was the end of that exchange, and we went back to the third act pacing, and I sat at my desk for a little while after and thought about the dinner party scene, which I had thought was the best scene in the book since the first time I read it, and wondered what it meant that the author had agreed with me so immediately and so specifically. I did not ask what the reasons were. I was being professional. And also by week 6, I had begun to have a feeling I couldn't quite name yet. A small, persistent sense of something familiar that I couldn't locate. Like a song you recognize the melody of before you remember the words. Halfway through the 3rd month, I read the last chapter for the first time. I had been reading in order, which is not always how I edit. Sometimes you need to read the ending before you can understand the middle. And sometimes you need the middle before the ending makes sense. With this manuscript, I had been reading in order because the book wanted to be read that way. It was built on accumulation, on the slow weight of time and choice and consequence. And jumping ahead would have broken something. The last chapter was from his point of view. The whole novel had been from hers. That was the structure. Tight third person following the woman through the choice and the years after, her interiority, her cost. And then, in the last chapter, the point of view shifted. Without warning, without transition, just him. 7 years later, working at his desk in the city he'd never left. The particular quality of an autumn afternoon when you've been sitting in the same chair for too long. A phone call from a mutual friend. Some news. She was coming back. Not for good, just to visit her mother, who was unwell. Just for 3 weeks. The friend said, "Thought you should know." He sat with it for a while. Then he went back to his desk. The chapter was 6 pages. It covered one afternoon, and then an evening, and then a morning in which he walked to the coffee shop he went to every morning and sat at his usual table and opened his laptop and then closed it again and just sat there. On the last page, he was sitting at the coffee shop table. The door opened. He looked up. And the chapter ended. And the novel ended. Not with what happened next, with the moment before it. With him looking at the door and the reader knowing who had walked through it, and the novel simply stopping. The way some things stop, not because they're over, but because what happens after is no longer a story that can be told from outside. I sat with the last chapter for a long time. I want to try to describe what that was like, because I don't think I can tell this story properly without it. I had edited the book for nearly 3 months by then. I knew it well. The way you know a text when you've been inside it, when you've followed the logic of every scene and questioned the weight of every word choice, and understood, as well as you can understand someone else's work, what it was trying to do and how close it was getting to doing it. I knew the woman in the novel. I knew her choices. I had spent 3 months helping the author articulate what those choices had cost, which meant I had spent 3 months sitting with the cost of something I had not until that moment understood myself to be sitting with. And then the last chapter shifted the point of view. 7 years later, his desk, an autumn afternoon, a phone call from M. I read it once through. Then I put the manuscript down, closed the laptop, set it on the table, stood up and walked to the window of my flat, which faces a street I have lived on for 4 years, and which I looked at without seeing it for approximately 10 minutes. Then I went back to the table and read the last chapter again. The detail of the coffee shop was the same coffee shop from chapter 2, the one I had identified in week 4 as the coffee shop I had known. He sat at his usual table. The author had specified across the novel that this was his table, that he'd been going to this particular place for years, and now here he was again, at the same table on the morning after the phone call, with his laptop open and then closed, just sitting. He was waiting. That was what the chapter said. Underneath everything it was technically doing in terms of narrative. He was waiting, and he had been waiting for some time, with the specific quality of someone who has learned to wait without expectation, but has not yet learned to wait without hope. And the chapter ended with the door, and him looking up, because that was where his knowledge ended. I sat at my table for a long time. The thing I kept returning to, the thing that wouldn't let me move on to the practical question of what to do next, was the detail of him going back to the coffee shop the morning after the phone call. He had found out she was coming back to the town, just for 3 weeks, and the next morning he hadn't done anything differently. He had gone to his usual table, opened his laptop, closed it, sat. That was the detail that got me. Not the grand gesture, not the confrontation, the explanation demanded, the reckoning. Just showing up at the place he always showed up, the morning after learning she was coming. Because what else do you do with information like that, except carry on with where you are and see what happens? I had been, I understood, looking for some version of that quality in the manuscript for 3 months without knowing that was what I was looking for. The quality of someone who had absorbed something difficult and not performed their way through it. Someone who had just held it and kept going and was still 7 years later at the same table. I thought about the email correspondence, about the 11 p.m. replies, the careful disagreements, the way the author had engaged with the dinner party scene in Chapter 9. I thought about reasons I won't go into here. I thought about the question of whether she deserved the ending, and the question of whether she'd earned it, and the answer I'd given. She earned it by knowing what it cost. And I thought about who had asked those questions, about what it meant to ask them, about a character who had done what she had done, through someone who had been on the other side of it. I opened a new email. I sat with a cursor in the subject line for several minutes. Then I wrote, "I've finished the manuscript. I'd like to talk about the last chapter. I think maybe we should do this one by phone after all." I sent it at 11:47 on a Thursday night. I did not sleep well. He called the next morning. I knew before he said his name, not because of any single thing, because of the accumulation of them, the specific weight of 3 months of close reading and close attention, and also, underneath all of that, because of something older than the manuscript, something that had been sitting at the edge of my recognition for weeks, which was the feeling of knowing someone's mind. The phone rang at 8:43. I had been sitting at my desk since 7, with a cup of tea I'd made and not drunk, with the manuscript open on my laptop and the last chapter on the screen. I had been sitting there for an hour and 40 minutes, which is how I know the call came at 8:43, because I'd been watching the time with the specific attention of someone waiting for something without knowing exactly when it's coming. I picked up. "Nora," he said. I had not told him my first name. The correspondence had been formal, Ms. Aldridge for me, J. Callahan for him. I had signed my first editorial letter with my full name and then defaulted to initials for everything after, the way you do when a professional relationship becomes dense enough that formality starts to feel like shorthand rather than distance. He knew my first name because he had always known my first name. "James," I said. There was a long pause, not an uncomfortable one, the kind of pause that exists when two people are both processing the same fact at the same time and don't want to rush past it. "How long have you known?" he said. "A while." I thought about it. The architecture, the way you describe buildings, and the departure scene when you rewrote it, the specific detail of the text message. Another pause. "I didn't plan this," he said. "The introduction was through Margaret, who didn't know. She just knew you were the best editor she'd worked with." "I didn't know your name when I sent the manuscript. I found out after you responded." "And you didn't say anything." "I didn't know how," he said. "And then it seemed the work was going well, the book was getting better. I didn't know what saying something would do." "Did you think I would stop?" "I didn't know." A pause. "I didn't want to find out." I sat with that for a moment. It was a careful answer, and an honest one. And it contained in it something I recognized from 3 months of email correspondence. The quality of someone who said exactly what they meant without performing more or less than that. He had, in the manuscript, given his characters that same quality. The ability to hold a complex feeling and state it simply. I had noted this in the editorial letters as one of the book's particular strengths. I had not noted, because I had not yet known, that it was autobiographical. "The last chapter," I said. "The coffee shop, the door." "Yes." "You didn't write what happens next?" "No." "Why not?" He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, in the way I remembered, the way he spoke when he was being precise about something that mattered. "Because I don't know what happens next," he said. "That wasn't an artistic choice. I genuinely don't know." The novel ends there because that's where my knowledge ends. He sits at the table, the door opens, and after that, I didn't know what to write because I didn't know what was true. "It's a novel," I said. "It doesn't have to be true." "This one does," he said, "for me. This one does." The line was quiet for a while. Outside my window, it was a November morning. Gray, particular, the kind of light that is melancholy without being unhappy. "You never explained," he said finally. "Not as an accusation, as a fact." "I know. I'm sorry. I was 22 and I told myself a lot of things about why I didn't call. None of them were really about why." "Why then?" "Because if I called," I said, "I would have had to say out loud that I was choosing the job over you. And that was true, and I couldn't make myself say it. And then not saying it got harder, and then it became the shape of things, and I know that's not enough. It's the truth, but it's not enough." "No," he said, "it's not. But it's what I needed to hear anyway, that it was hard. That was the thing I couldn't figure out from inside the silence, whether it was hard." "It was," I said. "James, it really was." We were quiet for a while. November outside, 3 months of working on his book, both of us knowing and neither of us saying. And underneath that, 7 years of not knowing and not saying. And underneath that, a university evening when someone had said something that had seemed at the time like a beginning and had turned out to be the whole story, or at least the first part of it. "The book needs an ending," I said eventually. "I know. I can't write it for you. No. But I think you know what should happen at the coffee shop. I think you've known for a while." "I think I needed to know if she came back," he said. "Not to the town. I needed to know if she came back to the conversation, the one we never had." "She did," I said. "For what it's worth, editorially." He laughed, just once, quietly. "Is that an editorial note?" "It's a fact," I said. "You can do whatever you want with it." There was a pause, and then he said, "I think I know what I want to do with it." "Good," I said. "Nora." "Yes?" "Thank you for..." He paused, and I could hear him choosing the word carefully, the way he did in the manuscript when the word mattered. "For reading it. All of it. The way you read it." I thought about what reading it had been. 3 months of close attention to a story I hadn't known was partly mine. 3 months of helping someone say the thing that hadn't been said, without knowing I was one of the people it was being said to. "It was a good book," I said. "It deserved careful reading." Even so. The novel was published 8 months later. I edited the final version. We worked by email, as we always had, and also sometimes by phone, and occasionally, when the questions were complex enough to require it, in person, at a small Italian restaurant in Southwark that became, over the following year, something we went to for reasons that were no longer editorial. The last chapter, in the final version, has an ending. Not a long one, half a page, spare, in the same style as the rest of the chapter. He is at the coffee shop table. The door opens. She sits down across from him. They look at each other for a moment. Then she says, "I owe you a conversation." And he says, "I know. I've been keeping the table free." I cried when I read it, which I am aware is not a professional editorial response to the manuscript you've been working on for 6 months, but there it is. He had sent it with a note, final version attached. I think it's right now. Thank you for knowing what it needed before I did. I wrote back, "It's exactly right, for the record. which was true, and which was also not entirely what I meant, and which he knew because he replied, "I know, for the record." Here's what I want to say at the end of this about anonymous manuscripts and the things they contain. People put true things in fiction. Not always. Sometimes a story is just a story, and the characters are constructed, and the events are invented, and the feelings are imagined. But sometimes the fiction is a container for the thing that can't be said directly, the feeling that won't fit into a conversation, the explanation that's too complicated for a phone call, the acknowledgement of something that happened and mattered and never got its proper ending. James wrote a novel to say what he hadn't been able to say for 7 years. And I edited it without knowing it was his until I knew. And then I understood that editing it carefully and honestly was also its own kind of answer. That reading it closely enough to help it become what it was trying to be was the same as saying, I see what this is. I see what it cost. I'm still here, reading it. Some conversations happen on the page before they happen out loud. Some endings get written before they happen, and then they happen, and the writing turns out to have been right. His novel is on my shelf now. I have my name in it, acknowledgements, which I find I cannot read without the particular feeling of something landing exactly where it was supposed to land, after traveling further than either party intended. He signed my copy on the inside cover, just one line, for Nora, who knew what it needed. Which, I have found, is the right thing to put in a book when you're trying to say something that doesn't fit anywhere else.